A bully wants to exercise control. It's much easier to exercise control over somebody who's not clear and unsure of themselves and doesn't feel good about who they are and feels unvaluable than it is to have control over somebody who's clear about themselves and confident. Those people are much more difficult to push around. This is a really complex topic that often is misunderstood as a really simple topic. So it's really common when we hear the term bullying in our culture for people to frame that in terms of a young kid being physically bullied. First of all, let's acknowledge that bullying doesn't just happen in that classic sense with the kid on the playground. Bullying happens as a teenager, socially, on social media, by being excluded in social groups, by being chastised for being different. That same sort of thing continues into adulthood. And then as adults, we get into business situations and neighbor situations, and bullying happens there. And sometimes it's direct, and sometimes it's indirect, and sometimes it's just emotional, and sometimes it actually is physical. So there's all these different iterations. The cultural tendency is to think of the bullying as the thing that needs addressing, but actually there's a whole set of factors that create a bullying environment to begin with to make it even possible. And so if we can address those factors, then the end consequence, the bullying, actually just sort of evaporates or never happens to begin with. A common factor that I think is the biggest factor in any bullying dynamic is that the person being bullied is often not clear about their identity. And as part of their lack of clarity, they're not clear about their value. And so they feel invaluable. And in their feeling of invaluable, they feel vulnerable. And they feel unworthy. And so when the bullying starts happening to them on some level, a lot of times they even feel like they don't deserve to have a different experience. And so if all that's true, which I submit it is, then the solution is to help each person develop a really clear identity of themselves, which includes as a large component their understanding that they're really valuable. And we understand that we're valuable in terms of how we can have an impact. And when we have a positive impact, we feel super valuable. So the key, I think, is actually really simple, even though it seems like a complex situation. The key is to help people have an experience of themselves where they get to see firsthand in pretty quick effect, after their actions, their value by virtue of the interactions they have with people and the way that was well received. And so here in Sun Soo, in addition to having a super rigorous martial arts practice, we include in that lots and lots and lots of deliberate engagement among members, and we have this really, really diverse population. And so what happens in a natural class envelope, in addition to all the martial arts training, we also have all this social engagement where people are crossing paths with and engaging with people that they otherwise wouldn't cross paths with, who are similar to themselves in some ways, but different in a lot of ways too. And they have these interactions, and sometimes it's one person teaching somebody else something. Then they see the impact of their, the benefit of their teaching. Sometimes it's just sharing information about, something they're interested in, a goal they have. But they have this series of interactions in every class. And then class after class after class, we start stacking more and more of those on top of each other. And in a really short period of time, that practitioner accrues a really large volume of positive interactions where they're well received, the other person appreciates them, the other person gets them, they feel known, seen, valued, they're validated, their confidence goes up, not to a level of arrogance, but just to a level of realizing that they mean something to a lot of different kinds of people in the world. And then they have confidence and they're clear, and bullies don't like that. Bullies like easy pickings. So the solution is super easy. Just help people have a really clear vision and identity of themselves where they get their value. And once they get that, they want to produce more and more of that too. Kid, or whether they're an adult, whether we're talking about a physical situation, emotional situation, psychological situation, social media situation, business situation, neighbor situation, like bullying has all these different forms. But in most cases, when somebody's being bullied, they're actually not clear about their own identity and their own value. And they're in various ways, a lot of times in really sort of invisible ways, they're communicating that lack of clarity. They're saying, I'm not sure about who I am. I'm not sure about my value. And because I'm not sure, I'm actually vulnerable for you to impose upon me. And so it's rare that people who are clear about their identity and sure of their value, it's rare for those people to get bullied. Bullies want an able and easy victim. They want somebody to push around. A bully wants to exercise control. It's much easier to exercise control over somebody who's not clear and unsure of themselves and doesn't feel good about who they are and feels unvaluable. It's much easier to have control over somebody like that and push them around than it is to have control over somebody who's clear about themselves and confident. I'm not talking about arrogant, but confident, really clear. Those people are much more difficult to push around. So a bully really doesn't want to do any more work than they have to, and they will notice that clarity and that confidence and just move to the next, even if they're not even psychologically aware of it. So I think that the key here really is to help people be really clear in their identity, be clear that they have value. And the way that we choose to do that here at Sun Soo is we have lots and lots and lots of interaction among members in a really, really diverse and varied populace. And through all that exposure across all those different dimensions, people begin to realize interaction after interaction after interaction that like, wow, that went well. Oh, that person was pleasant. Oh, that was cool. That person seemed to enjoy me. Oh, I helped teach them that thing. Oh, I learned from that thing. And so all these positive interactions end up building up people's confidence and validating their value to other people, which is basically the way that we see value. We see our value in terms of how we affect and impact and provide some sort of benefit to other people. And as people accumulate lots and lots, a large volume of those types of engagements, they end up feeling really good about themselves, being confident, being clear about their identity, being clear about what they want more of, what they want less of. And then they move forward in the world as a clear person, and they, in so doing, become a less likely victim to bullying.